Hello there. Welcome to Healthy Cooking with your friendly Italians. I'm Jim Barrow.
And I'm Marilyn Barrow.
And this week we're going to do some recipes from our mother's old cookbooks. Plus, we talked about my family last time. Now we're going to get into the real nitty-gritty of Marilyn's family, who is from Auburn, and we're pasta makers, P&R Macaroni, and we're going to be doing some casseroles, and we're going to be talking about Marilyn and all the terrible black sheep of the family that she has, and all kinds of really connections. So that should be interesting. But
as our son says, he's listening to the show and he's finding out things he didn't know before.
That's right.
So he listens to the show.
But before we get into Marilyn's family, there's one thing I wanted to tell you about. It was my father. My father was immigrant from Italy. He came on over here, and he was working for Bethlehem Steel, and his mother got sick. This was right before the First World War.
Yes.
Went back over there to see her, and when he
was drafted. He
was drafted into the Italian army. Italians in the First World War were on our side, and he was he had a bald head, and he would say, "You see my bald head? You know what the problem with my bald head?" He says, "How I got this bald head?" He says, "I have a helmet, and in the helmet I would cook. In the helmet I would shave. In the helmet I would pee, and then I put it on my head." He says, "That's why I got a bald head."
He used to say that all the time.
Yeah. And he was really an interesting guy. He wore a hat somewhat like Harrison Ford's hat when Indiana Jones, and he used to go on to the job sites. He ended up being a contractor, building roads.
With his brother, yeah.
And when he got mad, he would take the hat and he would throw it on the ground, and he would jump up and down on it and swear in Italian. That was my
Well,
father.
that's how he got rid of his frustration.
That's right.
That's good.
But I wanted to mention that to you but the real juice is going to come here in a minute.
Well, now.
You want me to be nice, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, let's start out by giving them a recipe.
All right.
This is from the P&R Cookbook.
We actually did have a cookbook. We used to have all kinds of things. Yeah, there was a cookbook.
And this P&R, if you don't know, is a macaroni company, a long time in.
It was named after both of the partners, Pino and Rossi. Although my aunt married a Rossi, so we were all interrelated.
And they were pasta makers in Italy.
Yes, my grandfather was third generation. He's the one that started it. So my father would have been fourth generation, and then it went on to my cousin Nick Rossi. So he would have been the fifth generation pasta maker. And
they had their factory was right next to the Auburn prison, and people said that they had underground.
Well, they didn't.
They didn't. Okay, I won't go there. So let's give a recipe for a vermicelli. Now, vermicelli.
It's a very thin,
very thin pasta.
Usually cracks up too. It doesn't stay long.
No, it doesn't.
It goes in small pieces.
And we're going to be putting some mushrooms and gorgonzola in it. Gorgonzola is the Italian version of blue cheese, but
yes.
it's creamier and more hearty, and really adds itself well to to something like this. And it's a fairly simple recipe where you're going to saute some butter in a pan, and then you're going to add some sliced mushrooms, and you're going to let that cook for about 5 minutes, and then you're going to add some chopped onions and some parsley and cook that for about 5 more minutes. Then add some cream and gorgonzola, and let that cook. Then add your pasta, and always add about a half a cup.
A little of the salted water does help.
And drizzle a little olive oil over it, and you have a pasta from P&R Cookbook.
But you have to make sure that the pasta is al dente, because it keeps cooking.
Yeah.
In today's world, you have certainly a lot more mushrooms. So this can become very flavorful if you use some, just not the proverbial. I think in those days you were lucky if you had canned mushrooms. But
Yep.
In this day and age, you can get all kinds of mushrooms at your grocery store.
Yep.
So it's a very good dish.
Let's talk a little bit about P&R. We mentioned they came on over, and
Yeah,
they
came
started over in
They
Syracuse.
came to Syracuse. My grandfather came first. They had 2 children in Italy. They were my 2 aunts that were older than my father, and he started the business. And then my grandmother came over with her 2 daughters that were 1 and 2. And then my father was born here in the United States, and my grandfather died relatively young. And my father had to quit high school to go help with the factory.
And P&R back then was considered one of the finer pastas made around, and it was high quality product using semolina flour, and they made what, Marilyn? How many?
I think they probably had between 50 or 60 different cuts. It all depended how many. I mean, the cuts were made. They had to go through this brass mold. The brass mold would have been. It could be the size of a table, a round table, what you would consider a normal sized table.
And probably 5 inches thick. And with these little holes in them.
The holes would make the shape of the pasta.
So there would be a die, it would be pressed through this die.
So the biggest problems you may have is your humidity, your drying process. I mean, the important things were the ingredients. You had to have good semolina. My uncle would be on the phone and doing futures on getting semolina out of the Midwest. Those were the important things. In the drying, I had another uncle that they hired that married another aunt, and he was the one, Anthony Penzone, and he was the one that knew about drying and knew about the machines. And they brought him, they knew of him, and they hired him. And that's how it was done. But it was always done with the best quality of ingredients.
And they would make egg pasta, make lasagna, mantegotti that you could stuff.
And sometimes they would make something seasonal.
Right.
Instead, they wouldn't make it all year round.
And they also made sauce.
Eventually, they did.
They made sauce. But what, sadly to say, a flood came through Auburn. And
the factory was right next to the river.
Yeah, and it destroyed a lot of the equipment, and they eventually had to sell the company to, of all people, Hershey Chocolates.
Hershey Chocolate was the first one that bought it.
And basically, Hershey Chocolates bought it because they wanted the name,
right?
Because it was such a renowned name.
This wasn't the only. This was before the huge increase of people eating pasta, and they bought up all these small. There were several throughout New York State and Pennsylvania and New England of small macaroni companies or pasta companies that were owned by families, and they basically ended up buying them all. Ronzoni, Gioia, all the names that you may have been familiar with, they bought them all, and it was all then made by one manufacturer, and then it was sold.
The same product was packaged under different names, but it was the same.
And they're still doing that today. It was P&R Ronzoni, and it's now packaged under Ronzoni. It has been sold by Hershey. I don't know how many times this conglomerate has been sold, but several.
Yep. So.
But the names, some of the familiar names are still there.
That's the story of P&R, and we're going to get into the good things about P&R for a moment. But first, let's give another recipe.
Okay.
And this comes from Marilyn's mom, and this is something we used to do at Christmas Eve when you didn't eat meat. You had all your fishes, which are stuffed green peppers that I love.
Our family loved it. Our kids would come home and they insisted I had to make them. They're not I didn't find them that easy to make, although Jim has improved the recipe.
I made them
think.
last week. They were
Yeah,
very,
and they
very
were good. You ended up putting them in the oven, and originally we had to fry them, but
And this time of the year, where peppers are so prevalent, it'd be a great time.
Right.
You don't have to wait till Christmas to do them. And it's a little time consuming, but I love them, and I eat them like I would popcorn, but they're wonderful. And what you're going to do now, mind you, all these recipes, if you roll down, they're in here, and they give you
they're
all the
on
ingredients.
fingerlakes1.com.
Fingerlakes1.com. And the combination that we're going to be using here is we're going to cut the tops off of the green peppers and wash them out and get the membrane and seed out.
Yeah.
Seed out of them.
Seed
And
them.
we're going to stuff them with a bread mixture of Parmesan cheese, some chopped onion,
Right.
some garlic, some chopped either Kalamata olives or the dry Italian olives. Dry Italian olives are better. You're going to seed them, or put take the seed out. Some parsley, anchovies, and I know a lot of people don't like anchovies,
yeah.
but
They help.
they help, and you can leave them out
And
if you
you
like.
use stale Italian bread, like overnight. I mean, you can't use it just really fresh because it'll just mush on
But
you.
you don't want breadcrumbs.
But you don't want breadcrumbs. What you want is like a day-old Italian loaf or a couple days old, and you just take all the bread out of the middle.
And then you also put some chopped capers in there, some black pepper, some olive oil, and you loosely fill the...
Yes, you don't want to pack it
you,
tight.
You do not want to pack it tight. And get a saute pan and a little olive oil and put them on their side and saute them and turn them like every 4 or 5 minutes so that the skin
Nice
is sort
and
of
brown.
nice and brown. And then finish them off, then take and finish them off in the oven so that all of them are at the same degree of doneness.
Right, and I think by putting them in the oven, which we didn't do originally, I think it does cook them better, and then you don't have to be standing over the stove turning these peppers.
So and they're very good, and this is a good time of the year to
Right.
do it. All right, Marilyn, we got to talk about one of your favorite persons, Lucian.
This is my Uncle Lucian.
Oh.
My father came from a family, he had 3 sisters and 2 brothers, so there were 6 of them. And Uncle Lucian comes right after my father. And unfortunately, well, he was in World War II. He came back, and he was just a gambler. Okay.
He was a Damon Runyon character.
If you ever heard of a Damon Runyon character, actually was written up in the paper.
Yes.
By Damon Runyon of running the best crap game outside of New York City.
Walter
Winchell's
column.
column. Yes.
Best crap game
outside of New York City was held in Auburn, New York.
And I got to tell you a story when the first time I met him. Jack Persino, Marilyn's father, called me up one day and he says, I'm going up to Boston to see Carmen Basilio fight Lou Pentner. He says, why don't you come with me? I says, okay. So we go on up. We register in the hotel. We go up to the 5th floor. We get off. The bellboy is there. As we're walking down the hall, there's this seedy-looking character with a hat pulled down over his face, sort of leaning against the wall. Okay. Bellboy opens the door. Bellboy walks in. Jack walks in, and this seedy-looking character walks in, and I walk in.
Yeah.
Not a word's been said. He takes his coat off, hangs it up, goes into the bathroom, has got a toothbrush in his coat, goes in there, stays a few minutes, comes out in his pajamas. By this time, a cot has come in, and he gets in the cot and goes to sleep. So I say, Jack, I hate to be nosy, but who is this guy? And he says, well, that's my brother. He's a little down on his luck right now.
A little down on his luck. But so Uncle Lucian was certainly a character. We all loved him dearly, but I mean, he did cause a lot of upset in the family, let me tell you, with his own kids and whatever. So
yeah, he he did have he had a booking agent. He did a lot of booking of horses and such in Auburn.
He had horses. He was
Yeah.
at the racetrack.
And then they finally asked him to leave Auburn.
They did. They told him they didn't want him to come back to Auburn. So when Grandma got sick, my father, in his inevitable, would go talk to the police, and Uncle Lucia could come home and see his mother for a short period of time or whatever. It all depended on what Uncle Lucian was doing at the time. There were good times and there were bad times.
You knew the good times and bad times because when the good times came, he would drive in a Cadillac.
Definitely a Cadillac.
When the bad times came, he came in by bus.
Right.
So, but the guy would give you the shirt off his back.
He was
really,
he was a real
good man.
Damon Runyon character. There's
Yes, he
no
was.
question.
Yep. So, and there's another story, Marilyn, about when we were down in Florida or down in New Orleans.
New Orleans.
And we're in a hotel, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and the guy says, "Hey, Jimmy," this is Lucian.
And I said, and we're wondering, how in the world does he even know where we are?
How do we know?
Well, apparently he called home. Jim and I went without the children. The babysitter asked who it was. He told the babysitter it was my uncle, and she gave him the number. So we get this call.
So he says, "I want you to go down to a coffee shop, and I want you to sit down right by the big pillar, and I'll talk to you." Okay. So I go downstairs, I sit, and I don't see Lucian. All of a sudden I hear, "Psst, psst, don't turn around. I'm behind a pillar. The FBI are after me. They caught me for juicing up the horses. I got to get my horses out of New Orleans. You got some property down in Florida." He says, "I want to put the horses in your name, and we'll run them out of Hialeah."
I'm looking at my husband and saying,
I said,
"Not
"I
over our
don't-
dead body."
I don't think so.
No way.
So,
But anyway, it was interesting. It was an interesting way to grow up.
yeah. All right, let's talk about another recipe that comes from my mother. Back when I was a kid, on Fridays we couldn't eat meat.
Right.
I didn't like fish. Only thing I would eat is a casserole dish, canned tuna fish, and potato chips with condensed mushroom soup.
This sounds terrible to me.
I cannot make it in the house. My wife will kick me out.
Obviously, I did not have tuna fish
But
casserole. on
Your kids
Friday
might
night.
like it.
They may.
Yeah.
They may. I'm not sure how healthy it is. But
No, how can it be healthy with? But yeah. But
potato chips and cream of mushroom soup. I
but-
don't know.
And what you do is you take in a bowl, you mix, drain out your tuna fish, get a can of condensed mushroom soup, add some milk, add 2 cups of potato chips that you've crunched up.
You have to crunch them up,
Yep,
yes.
celery and onion, pour it into a casserole dish, put some breadcrumbs over the top, a little dotting with butter, stick it in there in the oven at 375 for 20 minutes, and olé!
There you go.
You have this dish. So kids, your kids might like it. You might like it. Who knows? But I thought I'd throw that out at you. Marilyn, let's talk about your dad. Jack Priscino. He was a big man, and
He was a sports fanatic.
he was sport. He always had a cigar in his mouth. He had a deep voice. He used to drive Chrysler Imperials with
Yes.
the big long fins on him. Had a Borsalino hat on, and he talked like this, And he talked like somewhat of the character. Heart of gold. Did a
He
lot
helped
for
more
Auburn.
people. I can't believe the people that after he died that came up to me and told me stories of what my father had done for him.
He was a boxing commissioner.
Yes, he was on the state boxing commission.
He started the baseball.
He helped start the baseball.
In Auburn. He helped get Roman Club
Right.
Going.
I remember many a night that he would invite. He didn't believe in entertaining either customers or people that were coming in in a restaurant. So he would call my mother and tell her that he was bringing guests home, and basically he would say, what kind of macaroni do I need to bring home if you don't have enough there? So that was about it. But I was an only child, a daughter, and I can't tell you the number of baseball players that came through that I ate dinner with that were very famous
and went on
and
to the big
were at our
leagues.
dinner table.
Yep. And back then, when the Yankees were on top,
Right.
All the time and always going to a World Series, he went to all the World Series games.
The Semolina companies used to get him tickets.
Yes.
That was, yes, they provided the tickets for World Series for him.
And I can remember in the Roosevelt Hotel, in the lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel, he'd have 20 or 30 World Series tickets, and he'd get up on a chair in the lobby, and he put them up. He says, "Okay, who wants some ticket to the World Series?" Now, he wouldn't sell them. He wouldn't
would
sell
give them
He'd give them
away.
away, right?
Well,
And
then we went to a World Series.
Oh, did we ever?
Soon after we were married.
we had a box seat at the World Series, and in the box seat was Joe DiMaggio, and what was the other guy's name, Marilyn?
Carmen DeSapio.
Carmen DeSapio, who was head of the Tammany Hall at the time. And we sat there and watched the World Series game while we were
And
there.
I remember taking trips by train to go down and see the World Series when I was a girl.
Absolutely.
My father would arrange, a couple of railroad cars of people, and he'd have the tickets, and we'd all go down for the game and come back. So that was fun too.
Yeah. And talking about arranging, when we were married, we had a large wedding.
Yes.
It was 450 people or
something like that.
And my father-in-law decided that he wanted everyone to drink asti spumante, which is the Italian champagne.
Sweet champagne,
Sweet
really.
champagne. So he said, "I want one bottle for everybody there." So he wanted 450 bottles of champagne. And the story goes that one night he's home. He gets a call in the middle of the night, and the guy who was in the trucking business says to him, "I want you to come on down to the factory, open up the doors, and wait." So he goes down. Sure enough, this big tractor trailer comes in, goes into the area where the trucks are, and lo and behold, in there was 450.
How many cases?
Case after case of Asti
Spumante. But he had all kinds of friends.
Had all kinds of friends. We're not going to go any farther with
No,
that one at all.
he had people
but I
doing
will
him
say,
favors.
We
Yes.
had little old ladies, little Italian little old ladies that went to the wedding, and they started drinking the champagne, and the champagne going down easy, nice, and all the little old ladies got drunk. So
Well, it was a fun party. That's all I can say.
It's a fun party for 450 people. I got it, Marilyn. People don't believe this, but we had an arranged marriage.
Oh dear, we're not telling that story.
You want to tell that story?
No, I guess you keep saying it's arranged marriage. I'm not too sure. But
Well, what happened? My mother and her
my aunt Lena,
were good
Rossi.
friends.
Yes,
and
they met in Florida.
decided that we should get married.
Well, the reason that they wanted, his mother was not happy. He was going out with a rockette in New York. He
You
had
didn't
gone
have to
to
tell
New-
them that.
Yeah, well, he went to New York to be an actor. His father then eventually said, "You have to come home and run the business," and his mother was not happy about this at all. So she was trying to get something going, and I don't know.
So they decided that they were going to have a party for us to get so that we would meet, but they wouldn't tell us that it was for us.
And that didn't work.
So my mother didn't drive. I drove her to this place, and Marilyn's there, and within 5 minutes we realized
we
what's
knew
happening.
this was happening. We were both in college,
So-
so we left.
I said, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. 2 years go by, and I come home one afternoon on a Sunday, and who's in the living room but Marilyn?
Well, you haven't explained all that, but that's okay.
I'm not going to explain all the rest.
It doesn't make any difference. Anyway, we ended up, after we were out of college, both of us working. He was in the construction business. I was teaching third grade over in Auburn.
She
We
looked pretty
met
good.
again,
Yeah.
and then we got married.
Well, I says, let's go out. So we went out one date. I says, I'm going to marry you. And that was it.
There you go. Don't try that, though. I don't think it's the best. I don't think it will actually mean, but it worked for us. It's okay.
It worked for us. So,
Okay.
yeah, it was an arranged marriage. Anyway, you look, it was an arranged marriage.
Whatever he says. Don't believe a word of it, but that's okay.
One last recipe, another casserole dish. Had this last week.
This was really good.
This was really good.
This
Easy
was
to
out
make.
of your mother's cookbook,
This was
wasn't
out
it?
of my mother's cookbook, and it's a cabbage and sausage casserole. Real easy to make. You're going to saute in a little olive oil some ham and some cabbage and some onions and cook that for about 5 minutes. Cut up some sausage, Italian sausage, add that to it, saute that for about 10 minutes, add some chicken stock, and let that heat up for a couple minutes. Sprinkle the top with some flour and stir that around for about a minute. Then add some milk and stir it around till it thickens. A little salt and pepper. Put it in a casserole. Put it in the oven. Little grated cheese over it for 10 minutes, and you got it. That's it. Real easy.
So we have some simple recipes. Do go on Finger Lakes One
Yep.
and find the recipes at the bottom of our show.
These are
If you
old.
have any ideas or some recipes that you'd like to share with us that we could feature, that would be nice, or any suggestions.
Yeah.
And I guess it's time to tell them what we plan to do in our next show.
We're going to have Chef Ben from the Gould is going to come by, and we're going to be starting to talk about Thanksgiving and what they plan on doing. Hopefully, have some hints. And I'll start with some recipes and things that you might consider for
The holidays.
Thanksgiving. Yeah, and then following up on that, I'm also got a new way of how to cook a turkey that is real easy, and you don't have to worry about part of it being overcooked
and part of it undercooked.
Really simple to do. So we're going to be talking about all of that, and that'll lead us right into the next couple of shows concerning Thanksgiving. And I think that Chef Ben will have some tips,
sure he
and
will.
We'll talk about what
We're going to meet with him.
what they're going to do there.
With them soon to figure out.
Yep.
Yes.
So that's what we're doing. So you got it all. We have laid ourselves open.
I don't know. Okay.
The infamous. Hey, have a good time. Enjoy. Come back and see us. We'll be continually talking about some more food and more stories.
And more stories.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Ciao.